Hey everybody, welcome to the YS Podcast. My name is Adam McLean, and it's December. Welcome to December, right? Do you hear the Christmas music in the background? Turn it down, turn the podcast up, and we're going to get you off. We have a 3-week series on Advent, and I know a lot of you guys might work in churches where maybe Advent's not something that you do, and so Lily's going to introduce to you a little bit about Advent, and maybe you'll learn something.
Hey, it's week 2 of Advent. I'm going to light the second candle. And maybe you've never done Advent in your church tradition, or maybe you've never done Advent with yourself or your students. So I want to give you a little background of why it's cool to do as a practice for yourself and as a practice for your students. One of the things about Advent is it's slowing down time. It's a time of waiting and preparation for the coming of Jesus. And we live in such a crazy world where they start praying Christmas carols, you know, before Thanksgiving, and sometimes even close to Halloween. So what Advent does is it prepares you the first 4 weeks of December to get ready for the coming of King Jesus. And there are 2 different traditional ways to do the candles at Advent. One, there are always 4. And then on Christmas Eve, we add the Christ candle in the center. And I grew up with just red candles or different, similar color candles together. But in a very traditional Advent wreath, you get 4, 3 that are purple and 1 that is pink. And purple is the traditional color of Advent because it represents the royalty of the coming of the King, and it also reminds us and gets us ready for the purple of Lent, which is a season of suffering. And back in the day, actually Advent was a period of fasting and preparation in preparation for the coming of King Jesus. So some of us have gone away from the purple, although I like it, and gone to the color of royal blue to celebrate the royalty of Jesus. And so we get away from the purple that represents Lent and the suffering in the church calendar. And that brings me back to the church calendar. One great thing about Advent is it's the beginning of the church year. And in the church year, Advent is the beginning of the new year, which tells the story of Jesus. And we tell the story of Jesus every year because we forget what the story is about. And so many people don't know the story of Jesus anymore that it's a great way to start out thinking about how do we retell the story of Jesus' life. So Advent is the beginning, then followed by Epiphany on January 6th, and then followed by the season of Lent, and then Easter. Now the great thing about Epiphany is that you get to retell the Christmas story. So if you're like me and working on church staff and you're just fried and too busy to even think about Christmas and celebrating Jesus' birth, the 25th begins Christmas season, and you actually get to celebrate the birth of Jesus for the Christmas season. And then Epiphany is a celebration of when the light came to the Gentiles, and that is another great way to retell the story. So you could retell the story of Jesus' birth again with the coming of the wise men. But back to Advent 2. So we're in Advent 2, and it's the second candle, and it's known as the Bethlehem candle or the candle of faith. And the faith of Mary and Joseph going on their pilgrimage to Bethlehem into the belief that what was getting ready to happen was a miracle. So one of the things that I like to do with students, and I've actually done it with my own family, is to get an empty manger scene, so just the stable, and then Xerox off or write down on pieces of paper the names of the different people that participated in the story of Jesus' birth. Everybody from Herod to the wise men to the angels to the innkeeper, and write those down on pieces of paper and then fold them up inside the manger or inside the stable, and have people draw those out and carry them with them and see what it was like to be in the story as that person. So to really view the story of Jesus' birth through that piece of paper that you got, through that person's name. And I've been carrying around the name of Joseph for the last week and thinking about all the things that were in his life and how it affected him to find out from an angel that it was okay to marry Mary. And then all the reactions of his parents about what would it be like to marry this person who's already pregnant, and to have to go to Bethlehem with a 9-month pregnant woman, and what would it be like to raise the Son of God. So that's something you can just try with your friends or with your Christian community, with your youth group, or even with your family for this week of Advent. And I'll see you next week.
Thanks for that, Lily. We look forward to the next 2 segments on Advent. Recently we had a chance to catch up with Scott Rubin, and he's the middle school pastor at Willow Creek Community Church in South Barrington, Illinois. He's going to share this devotional thought with you this week.
Hey, my name's Scott Rubin. I am the middle school pastor at Willow Creek Church, and when Adam asked me to share a couple thoughts with you, my brain went to a place where I was recently, hanging out at a coffee shop. And I know that there's some coffee lovers in the world, and I was thinking about this coffee shop that I've gone to recently. I've always wanted a place where I could go and say, give me the usual, give me my regular. But the problem with that is I don't ever go to places regularly enough and order the same thing often enough that someone could hand me my usual. So I started to go to this coffee shop. It's in between my house and my office, and I go there several times a week because I've been doing some writing projects early in the morning. And I'd go to this coffee shop and I got to know the people there pretty well, and so I'd start to walk in the door and they would hand me my usual drink. They'd see me park my Jeep, they'd see me walking in the door, and they'd already have my drink ready to go for me. It was pretty amazing, and I felt like, I'm in one of those movies where I walk in and go, I'll have the usual, except I didn't even have to ask for it. They were like ready to hand me my drink right when I got there. And crazy as it seems, it got me thinking about the parallel to what's going on in my ministry. And I thought about the number of kids who come in and they're anticipated, and someone sees them coming and they know their name, and they know their favorites, and they know what they're about. And it made me think of a couple kids I know. There's a guy named Eric, lives in my town. He's a big White Sox fan. And when I see Eric, he loves that I know his favorite players. He loves that I jabber with him about what's going on with his team and whatever. But I got thinking about just knowing him specifically. And it made me also think about how good it is to know students and their favorites, but also about the downside of knowing someone's usual, knowing someone's regular routine. And what I mean by that is, sometimes when I see Eric coming in, I think, okay, we're going to jabber about sports, we're going to talk about the White Sox, but what if this week when Eric comes into our ministry, he's having one of those rare moments of junior high introspection, and he wants to talk about something that's a little bit deeper than that. But when he walks in, I hand him the usual. It's like I went to the coffee shop a couple weeks ago, and I really didn't want to have my usual. I wanted to try something different. But by the time I walked in the door, they were already handing me the drink that I usually have. Well, I didn't want to offend him and go, no, I'm not having that today. So I just had my usual. If that happens to Eric, is he going to be able to say to me, I don't want to talk about that today? Or what about, there's a girl named Kayla. She comes from a great family. She's got a great sense of humor, and she jokes with me every time she walks in. And I love that. We have a little banter, a little horseplay. But what if, when she walks in this week, she's coming off of a tough conversation with her mom? What if she got in a fight with her mom this week, and she wants to talk about something a little bit more significant than some of the joking around that we do? If I miss that opportunity and I just hand her the usual, I could miss out on an opportunity that God has for me to go deeper. So it was very interesting for me to sit in the coffee shop and to think about the upsides of the usual and favorites and knowing students really well, but then also the downside of going, what if I'm too quick on that? And what it really made me think is, I've got to be in a place where I'm ready to consider all the time just the whispers of the Holy Spirit, kid by kid by kid, student by student, and say, God, what do you want me to talk to them about? What do you want me to listen for? What do you want me to pay attention to? I've been in youth ministry for a while now. I feel like I start to get pretty good at reading situations, but I also get pretty good at knowing the drill and knowing how things should play out. And when I think about my regular cup of coffee, when I think about getting my favorite when I go to the coffee shop, I love the plus side, but I've got to watch out for the downside of just handing somebody the usual. Is that true for you? You just handing people the usual these days? Or do you have your voice tuned in, your ears tuned in for the voice of the Holy Spirit? Something to think about. Well, it's been good being with you. We'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks for watching the podcast. I want to invite you to connect with me. You can send me an email at adam@youthspecialties.com, or you can look me up on Facebook or MySpace or Twitter or any other social networks that you use. We want to remind you, as we do every week, that what you do in your church matters. It matters deeply to your parents, it matters to the students in your ministry, but most importantly, it matters to the heart of God. We'll see you next week.